From the Cold Formed Steel Buildings Association, this is Cold Formed Buildings Made Easy with your hosts, John Cosper and Lauren Toole.
Welcome to Cold Formed Buildings Made Easy. My name is John Cosper. I'm here with my co-host, Lauren Toole. And Lauren, we have our first repeat guest this week. Coming back to join us is Nathan Margosian, who you all remember from last year. We had such a great conversation with Nathan. We actually rolled it into 2 episodes talking about erecting cold formed and kind of building a business around cold formed. And Nathan's actually expanded on that since then. He's still owner of NatMar Construction, but he now is working with ACT Building Systems as their brand ambassador, and then also as an erection support specialist and a support person, as well as he's going to be developing some educational materials around erecting cold form, as well as DIYers. So, Nathan, we're happy to have you back, and congratulations on everything.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be back and talking with you guys. Always a good time.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've been into since the last time we talked to you?
Yeah, I think John summed it up really well. So I still have my business, which is still very cold form centric, as well as doing some other steel building frame style. So I still have that. I've kind of taken a step back a little bit from running the day-to-days of it, though, leaving that to a really good team of mine. And I've joined ACT, had a really good opportunity to join that team over there, doing what John described, helping out with some of the marketing stuff, some of the content creation, some of the support on the technical side, and training up erectors. And it's been really cool because obviously I've had my business, and that's given me a lot of good perspective on the industry of what it is to have and build a business around cold form, but it's still restricted to my own personal experience in kind of that silo that I was working in Western Colorado, versus now with ACT, a lot of really cool opportunities to work with a lot closer with the ACT team and especially on the support side with people like Drew and Chris, who have been involved in the software and the erection of these buildings since for decades. High level of experience, and they've been doing it for so long, and they're both such wonderful teachers that every time I have a conversation with those guys, I get to learn more. And it's also opened, and also working with ACT has opened me up to a lot more people with varying experience levels just across the country, from DIYers to red iron guys transitioning into cold form, people who have handyman businesses that are adopting cold form into their business, new distributors, new erectors, and it's given me that broader perspective with interacting with those people of those varying experience levels and situations of the building types that they're putting up to kind of get a broader idea of how cold form is being adapted into the steel industry as a whole, and some of those common things that people are having success with or are struggling a little bit with as they're learning this new system, whether it's on the design side or on the erection side. So it's been an opportunity, and just kind of been doing it for a couple of months now. We're getting rolling, finding our groove.
That's awesome. So a couple months ago, you actually had a really cool experience. You got to go down to Texas and work with April Wilkerson. She built a cold form building down in Texas and had her regular crew come out, and it was their first time erecting a steel building, which was a joint venture between ACT and April. So what was that experience like, working with April, watching these guys who are, they're not professional contractors, they're DIYers. They like to get their hands dirty, especially April. I mean, she's a total beast out there. What did you learn from them in particular and their crew?
Yeah, April and her team they're really good at what they do. I mean, you can tell that they have, although no experience on the steel side prior to this project, but just a lot of experience working together. One of the things that it was really cool for me to get that perspective on is seeing the level of communication, particularly between April and Jacob, who I think is kind of her main guy in the field, and just their ability to adapt and learn a new system, even though it's not an overly difficult system to learn, but within a couple of minutes of like, okay, here's how you do this specific part of it. They don't even have to talk. They just kind of nod at each other, and then they are both flinging up purlins one after the other and doing a great job. That was a really cool opportunity to be a part of that project. I think she does a really good job of describing things in a way that's very easily digestible to DIYers, which is of course her demographic with her YouTube channel. And yeah, it just kind of shows that like you don't need all the fancy equipment in the world. You don't need all the experience in the world. You have to have a willingness to learn and read the plans and put on some tools and figure it out. You can build a not the smallest building either. Like it's not massive, but it's it was a good sized project for people to just kind of jump in and start doing it. They did it quick.
Yeah, it was interesting to watch the footage for the first couple days, but wasn't there for the rest of it. But watching some of the creative ways they had to do certain things just based on the site and where it was located and how the parts had to go around. Of course, we had to carry the giant rafters over by hand as it took a team because it was a single slope and it was a pretty long span. But even with the panels and having to kind of slowly work those over and everything like that. But it was just when there's a will, there's a way, and with April and her crew, there's always the will.
Oh yeah. Well, and that ability to adjust on job, because there's always things. Like we're making content and instructionals with ACT, right? But there's always hyper specific situations that you can't account for everything, and that's one of those, right? That big tree with the deck being in the way, call to put the roof on first before doing anything with the walls, which you can do very easily, especially when you have overhangs on the building. Yeah, and their decision making and ability to adjust like that, I mean, that's essential for anyone who's really going to be building full time.
What advice can you give people like April that's coming into cold form that knows nothing about it?
If you don't know anything about it, I think it would, man, I was gonna say it depends on what other experience you would have outside of cold form, but really it comes down to just reading the plans and getting familiar with the information that's readily available to you. And it is particularly with the ACT buildings, you have your stamped set of engineered plans as well as the accompanying construction package. Those two correlate with each other. The stamp plans are going to be what you're going to submit for permitting, and you're going to get those much right away. And then the construction package goes along with that, and you really need both. There's information on both that you're going to want on site. You can't find what you're looking for on one set of plans, go to the other one and look for it there. I'd say that's probably one of the biggest things. That's something that we see in support quite a bit, where people are like, I'm not sure about this specific detail. And a lot of the times the answer is like, hey, it's on detail O on page 3, and you send them a screenshot of that. And then they're like, oh, okay, cool. A lot of good information there. And if you're a DIYer, I would say that really making sure that you have the right tools. The equipment's pretty simple because you have a scissor lift. I mean, you can build these off of ladders. I know that people have done that, but having a scissor lift really is super nice. I personally prefer to have 2 on each job site. The job is big enough, negating the use of ladders just for safety and efficiency reasons. But having the right tools is just going to be really important, because you don't want to be putting in some screws and then realize that I need this one little bit, and then you got to stop what you're doing, go to Home Depot or Ace Hardware or whatever's closest to you, and then go get the right thing, come back and continue the job, especially when you're DIYing this and you're working on this on the weekends or after work. So utilizing that tool list put on our knowledge base with ACT, I think is a really good thing to do before starting the project, is you can just avoid a lot of frustration that way. Less of a concern for professional builders who are going to have the vast majority, if not all of those things anyway.
There definitely seems to be a lot of DIY interest coming out of April's videos. I'm seeing it on some of the leads, and I'm hearing it from some of the folks that are receiving those leads, that it's people that are wanting to build themselves. They're April followers, so they're DIYers themselves. They followed along. They've probably done some of the simpler furniture projects and things like that she's done, and they're interested in doing a building. Is there a rule of thumb that you would kind of stick to, as far as just kind of a general idea when you would recommend DIY, when you'd recommend possibly going with a professional?
Really, really depends on the experience level and the confidence of the DIYer. Because again, if we're going to classify April as a DIYer and her crew, which again, no experience putting up steel buildings, but so much experience just building things in general, that's someone that's going to adapt to any sort of building system much quicker, and they'll be more efficient on the job site than someone who's never built anything ever and is going to start like this. So I would not say that you can't do it if you are lacking a little bit of construction experience, but you want to budget more time for it, which kind of brings me to my main thing, which would be it depends on how much time you got to put up the building. Like if it's something where you're like, hey, this is going to be my house and my other house is sold and I need to have this place ready to move in 6 months when my like short term or when my temporary like rental lease is up, so I have a place to live. You might want to get a professional crew out there just to make sure you're getting done within your timelines. If it's something where you're like, you know what, I've wanted this shop forever. I want the experience of building it with my family. It's going to be on my forever home, my forever property. And I want to, in 20 years, I want to be able to walk around with my grandkids and point at different parts of the building and be like, yeah, we built this and we did this way. And like, if you want that experience, which is an awesome thing to have, I'm a little more sentimental about that now that I've got the 2 kids. But if you want to have that and you've got the time and you're not under like a big pressure to get something done very, very quickly, and you're okay just working on it with whatever time you have and it gets done when it gets done, then I say no matter what the experience level is, educate yourself on the right tools and equipment, which we have resources for that, and go about it safely. We have support with ACT as well to help you through the process. That would be my biggest delineating factor if I were to tell someone like, hey, you should DIY this or you should get this professionally done, is what's your time frame? We need this done yesterday. Get someone professional. They will be more efficient versus a DIYer. If you got time and you like to build stuff, take your time, enjoy the process, build it yourself.
I would definitely say my experience on visiting buildings, it lines up with what you said as far as buildings that were put up by professional contractors. They're up and they're in place. They can finish everything out very quickly and efficiently with a team. The ones that I've seen, and there've been a couple of them where, they're building it themselves or building it with friends or whatever. They used to be Barndominium newbies on YouTube, and at the moment it escapes me what they're currently calling their channel. Oversaw that project, and that project took a long time. I mean, it's a beautiful, gorgeous house, but it certainly did take a lot longer. So definitely budgeting a lot more time, planning to spend more money than you even anticipate going in doing it. But again, for that experience, I mean, Kenny's family is now living in a home that he built himself, that he built specifically for them. And that's like you said, that's invaluable, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are some of the most common things that you're seeing through support with your new role?
For sticking with DIYers, I'll say there's several different categories of people who are putting into support, right? But I would say for DIYers specifically, a lot of it really is just they're just not as familiar with reading any sort of building plans. So it's really just pointing them in the direction of like, here is that description, here is that detail, here's that information that you already have, but just kind of helping them find that. Some trim related things, which can be a little bit trickier because every manufacturer has some variance in the types of trim that they're offering, or people want custom trim, or they've gone through custom engineering and they have a third party that did some detailing on it, and so that's just a lot more information gathering. But it's really just helping a lot of times, it's just guiding them to the information that already exists, but they're just not as familiar with the process or the plans reading in general to find it themselves. That's a big thing. Yeah.
I have a follow-up question really quick.
Yeah.
Any advice you can give to like the seller or the manufacturer to help with that?
Yeah, I'd say for the sellers, for distributors, it would be giving the installer or the DIYer all of the information at the same time. And I want to say that second part specifically, just at the same time, because you get this, a lot of times we get the stamped engineering plans first, right? You submit in for permitting. Once the permits gets approved, then you place the order, and then you can get the non-preliminary construction package. So you're getting that information as a distributor at different times. And so you can send that information to the erector at different times as well. But I would just say whenever you get the new piece of information, whether it's a construction package or the material order, send all the previous sets with it so it's all in one place. And so it's just quick reference points. It makes sure, especially for someone who hasn't done it before, like a DIYer, not making the mistake of either just forgetting that the other one that was sent to them a week ago exists at all, or them having to go through and finding it or whatever it would be. Now, the thing with that is stamped engineer plans always take precedence over the construction package, but they do overlap and then, or they do correspond with each other, making sure that all those plans are corresponding with each other with the latest version of the building. Not so much an issue with the majority of projects, but a project for like a barndominium that's maybe gone through a lot of revisions or something that had to go through custom engineering. it can be easily mixed up, some of that information. So just making sure everything's up to date and they have everything all in one place that quick for them to find.
So you've been in your role with ACT for just a couple months at this point, and I know you've been talking with a lot of different erectors and some different dealers and stuff about potentially going out, doing some visits to create some content, but also to get to know people, get to see what they're doing, and helping to train some crews. What are some of the projects that you're most excited to get out to? As I know you've been talking to some people who've got some interesting things in the works.
Yeah. There's some cool projects going down in the Texas area, kind of between Austin and Dallas for some ADUs. Be really interested in checking those out. There's a really cool barn dominium project down in Arizona where all of the electrical and plumbing, rough-ins, and everything is exposed. I think is really interesting. I'd love to see that. Also some commercial projects down there just to kind of see the scale of things. There's a couple. There's a hangar minium project in I forget if it's north or south, but it's I'm
Knoxville?
maybe it's Knoxville.
No, it's
Yeah.
Knoxville.
Yeah, you know the one I'm talking about. Yeah.
I know which
But
one you're
I'd
talking
really
about.
like to go see that one. That would be great to see. There's some potential storage facilities going up. I'm partial to using cold form as storage facilities, particularly like the larger bay climate controlled ones, just because I've done that personally and I know how successful they can be at that particular usage. That would be really cool. There's so many. There's so many cool projects going up right now, and it's a growing. Cold form is really taking a bigger and bigger piece of the steel building pie. It's just adapting everywhere. It's exploding in a lot of places in the southeast and on the west coast. I mean, just everywhere. No shortage of interesting projects to go check out.
One of the big questions I know everybody gets asked, whether you're a dealer, whether you're a manufacturer, whatever, or even working at ACT Building Systems, is how do I find an erector? I don't want to be the DIYer that have no desire to learn how to do steel, but they need a steel building. They're looking for that erector, and I know that's been a struggle for a number of years. So, what are some of the goals that you have towards helping to connect people better with erectors, and maybe on the training side, but also just what are you hoping to do as far as being able to provide those resources for the people that are looking for the right guy in the right place?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now we have a map on the ACT website for an erector list, people who have come to us and asked to be a part of that list. We're working on some things to qualify people a little bit more within that system. That's kind of a real quick and easy cheat sheet way of being like, hey, I'm in Iowa. Look on that map. Is there anyone in my area? And if some people pop up, awesome. The other thing we're looking to do is as people are reaching out to us for different opportunities like these build sites you just mentioned of going out to and checking out, possibly integrating some training with people on those, which would just train up more erectors in those areas and put them on that list as well. So those are probably that, and as we're onboarding more and more manufacturers to get with the ACT system, we're training people on erecting the buildings at the same time, and so that they have their networks of ready to go builders to pair along with their distributors.
With being in the role that you're in now and your previous role, how do they intertwine?
I think that's a good question. I think seeing both sides of it, I think is really important, and it's really eye-opening for me because there's like, okay, there's like a classic thing, right, with people building stuff in the field where they see something. We're like, okay, engineers don't really know what they're talking about because like it works on paper, but it doesn't work in the field. Like if you're on a job site anywhere with any building system, like you're gonna hear that at some point. Is the contractors are complaining about the engineers and architects or whatever, right? There could be circumstances where both are true and then where both are wrong, right? And that's something that I really like with my role, try and bridge the gap. Obviously, I'm not an architect, I'm not an engineer, but being more involved now within ACT and how the software works and that team, as well as still having that perspective of how things really get utilized in the field, I think is a little bit unique. And yeah, bridging the gap to where there's as few of those miscommunication as possible.
So when we interviewed Nathan last year for the podcast, we had so much good information that we didn't want to cut out. We ended up splitting it into 2 episodes. Well, we're going to do that again this year because we had another fantastic conversation with Nathan. So we'll be back next month with more of our conversation. Until then, I'm John Cosper. On behalf of myself and my co-host Lauren Toole, thank you for listening to Cold Form Buildings Made Easy.